In today's video, I wanted to discuss a very clear, easy to understand definition of what narcissistic abuse really is. So if you've ever wondered if you really are a victim of narcissistic abuse, watch this video. Okay, so to me, a very clear-cut, easy definition of narcissistic abuse is when you are in a relationship with someone, and that could be a parent to child, it could be a romantic relationship, it could be a friend relationship, it could be a boss, but you're in this relationship with a person who is attempting to annihilate yourself. They're attempting to annihilate your very being, your individuality. Your thoughts, your feelings, your passions, your abilities are being attacked 24/7. And the abuser carries out this annihilation by several different manipulative tactics. So let's talk about what that looks like from a parent-to-child relationship. Okay, if a parent is toxic, maybe they have NPD, maybe they have BPD, maybe they have schizoid personality, maybe they were raised by a narcissist and now they think that's normal. Whatever the case, a child will receive narcissistic abuse if that toxic parent attempts to annihilate that child's development of self. Because when a child is born, they don't have that sense of self yet. They develop that. They will require their child to give up their wants, their needs, their feelings, their perception of reality, all to suit the needs or esteem or need for narcissistic supply of the parent. Sadly, children are very susceptible to this form of abuse because of their innate love for their parent. Have you ever seen an infant looking at other people, looking around at who's around them, but then their eyes fall on their parent? And the whole expression of that child changes. You see the love, the admiration in the eyes of that infant. I remember when my daughter was a month old and she was in her car seat and we were at a friend's house, there was about 10 of us, and she was looking up at everybody, and when her eyes fell on me, her whole expression changed. Honestly, I felt like a superhero. Just the way she looked at me was with so much love and admiration. I remember a friend of mine saying, "Wow, look at how she looks at her mom." So that love that that child has, if they are born into a toxic family, is used against them. They become willing participants in the annihilation of their own self because they're taught that having that self is bad. Having thoughts that are different from their parent are bad. Anytime they express themselves, it's met with such anger or rejection or rage that on a subconscious level, the child begins to learn, every time I'm me, every time I think of this or I do that, or every time I accomplish something good, it's met with so much negativity. I should stop that so I can make mom or dad happy. Sadly, a lot of parents that are toxic will use that to create lifelong indentured servants. I've coached many people who claim that they were the scapegoat and they wound up getting away from the toxicity, even though they had to do some healing work later on. But they'll say that the golden child still lives at home, has no life. That's because a toxic parent, from the time that child is small, will make them feel responsible for things that no child should ever feel responsible for, such as the happiness of their parent, the welfare of their parent. Parents should be there for their children, not the other way around. But toxic parents annihilate the child's sense of self and teach that child to live, exist, think, and breathe only for their parent. So now let's talk about narcissistic abuse between adults in a romantic relationship. The definition's still the same. A toxic person, a manipulative person that is inflicting narcissistic abuse will attempt to annihilate the self of the person that they're with. Now, it doesn't start out that way, and that's why it's confusing. It usually starts out with the victim falling in love with this amazing person. And that toxic person does seem amazing. Unfortunately, that toxic person is only showing their false self, who they want you to think they are, because they, at this moment, are seeking admiration. They seek out codependents and empathic people to admire them, because empathic people, they love to admire other people. They love to look up to people and find the good in other people. Codependents do as well. So it's like the perfect storm, right? So they seek these people out, they show them the false image, and then they do a bait and switch as soon as there's a commitment. Sometimes it happens soon after marriage or at some turning point in the relationship where now you suddenly get glimpses of their true self. The reason for that is, in the beginning, the narcissist is very focused on how much you admire them, and they're just soaking that up for their esteem or their narcissistic supply. But at some point, they start to realize that you are an individual, that you have different thoughts, that you can admire other things other than them, that you have talents that they don't have, that you have qualities that they don't have. And that becomes a threat to them, and that annihilation of self begins. Their desire is to extinguish that person's self, just like in the parent-child role. And they do this, once again, by many different manipulative tactics, all with the same goal. And the thing with narcissistic abuse is it's 24/7, even though we don't realize it. A toxic person that engages in narcissistic abuse is always playing the game. It's never on sometimes and off other times. Even when you think things are good, that's part of the game. It's to make you think things are better, or it's to create that trauma bond by that hot and cold push and pull. It's a 24/7 manipulation game, all with the intent to annihilate your sense of self. So just to talk about how they do this annihilation, just to mention a few of the manipulative tactics, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Oftentimes, they begin their manipulation in small increments. They will begin belittling you, comments that you're not used to having them say, comments to kind of erode your self-esteem, your own view of yourself. The only esteem you're allowed to have is how you feel about them. So they begin eroding your self-esteem, and that belittling and that criticism grows into outright contempt, where you actually feel hated for your very existence, for being who you are, unless you are pleasing the other party. They train you, just like parents teach their child to annihilate themselves, and a child does it motivated out of love for that parent, right? That love is manipulated and used against them. Well, in an adult-to-adult relationship, they use painful manipulative tactics to train you to stop being you. So, for example, if you notice something and you point it out to the narcissist, even if you bring their behavior to them in a respectful and kind manner, it will be met with rage, with the silent treatment, treating you as if you're dead. Because let's face it, you feel like the living dead when you're living in a house with somebody that doesn't acknowledge your existence. They punish you for noticing something wrong with them. An imperfection, we all have imperfections, but how dare you notice theirs? They annihilate yourself when you have a passion. Your passion is, let's say you have a talent in something, right? And you're very talented and you're very successful. They will criticize you. They will act bored. They will act or say things that make you begin to think that you're not as talented as you really are. And little by little, many people that are recipients of narcissistic abuse, little by little, they're conditioned to stop engaging in things that were a passion to them, things they were talented in, things they enjoyed, because they were trained with negativity. They were trained that it was painful to do something they loved. They were trained to automatically associate negativity with their passions, their loves, their self-expression, their self-esteem. If they are out in public and they do something that brings attention to them, they're funny, they're likable. How dare they be likable? You have to annihilate yourself, because now you're taking the shine off of the narcissist and onto you. So if you're likable in public, they will make sure that any time you're going out in public again, they'll be screaming at you in the car the whole way there, so that they present themselves fully happy and together, and you look a mess. If anyone knew what you were going through beforehand, they would understand. But people don't see that. They see this perfect false self of the narcissist. They see you a mess, and they reach the conclusion that you're the problem, which is the narcissist's idea from the beginning. But on a subconscious level, it's training you once again to annihilate yourself. Don't be funny. Don't be likable. Don't shine. Don't be an individual. You are just a tomb of a person. That's what narcissistic abuse is. What's confusing about narcissistic abuse is the talented way that the narcissist has to make you think that all of these problems, all of these difficulties, these arguments, the silent treatment, the toxic relationship is your fault. The reason is because inside of the narcissist, if we were to have X-ray vision and see within their soul, and I know a lot of you right now are saying, they don't have a soul. I get it. But if we were to see inside of them, we would see that what is filled within is a sense of entitlement combined with an extremely low and fragile self-esteem. It's like trying to mix oil and water. So in order for them to be able to feel good about themselves, even though they have this half and half mixture, right? They use projection onto their victims. So if they're feeling unattractive, they'll start criticizing what their partner looks like. If they're feeling unsuccessful and they're seeing that you're successful in something, they'll start criticizing it. And to me, one of the most difficult manipulative tactics, one of their most insidious manipulative tactics is when they give subtle hints or make subtle covert comments that cause the victim to question their own behavior, their own thoughts, their own sense of self, as if there's something wrong with that sense of self. And that's gaslighting. They use gaslighting to make their victims think that their sense of self is crazy. Them being themselves or thinking they're in their own reality is crazy. It causes a victim to begin to abandon their sense of self because of the way the narcissist is viewing that sense of self and teaching them how to view it themselves. That's what narcissistic abuse is. It's being in a relationship with somebody that is determined to destroy your sense of self, determined to not allow you to have your own thoughts. And if you dare try, they will convince you that you're crazy for having them. They will not allow you to engage in something happy because they'll condition you to associate anything that makes you happy with negativity. The truth is that narcissists have no sense of self. Toxic people that do this, they have no sense of self, and they punish others for having one. I hope this helps anybody that has been wondering if they have been a victim of narcissistic abuse. And if you want to learn more about how to determine if you are a victim of narcissistic abuse, please check out this video, 20 Symptoms of Narcissistic Abuse Victim Syndrome. I found that rather than focusing on what the narcissist is to find out if you're a victim of narcissistic abuse, focusing on you, focusing on how you've changed, on what you've become, or who you've become, or who you've stopped being as a result of the relationship is a real eye-opener. Narcissistic abuse victims at the end of the relationship, when they finally realize the toxicity and whether they're out of the relationship or they're contemplating leaving the relationship, they wonder if they'll ever be normal again. They've undergone such severe emotional abuse that their inner self has been erased. The good news is that as deep as the wounds are of narcissistic abuse, as difficult as they are to deal with, to recognize that you have been inflicted by that, you can overcome it, and you don't have to do it alone. There is so much free information out there on narcissistic abuse. Knowledge is the first step. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. So begin putting the tools that you learn into practice in your life. You'll begin to empower yourself. And if you still need one-on-one personal assistance, my coaching is always in the description box in all of my videos.